Jesse Cannon, just search him. All kinds of advice. He tries to cover as many different aspects of marketing music as he can, social media, radio, even production stuff. And that's probably like the best free place, and it's funny because I can't tell you how many times I'll tell people about like Jesse's channel, for example, like free knowledge. Hey, look, you can learn how to do this all here. It's literally free. But they're like, I just didn't have the time to watch it, or like people don't take marketing seriously,
Right.
Even if you give them the answers
it's not
for
the
free.
Sexy thing.
Yeah, this is where music becomes work, and people don't understand. Like it is work. If you actually want to be look, if you don't want to be if you don't care about success and like growing as an artist, and your goals aren't that, then that's totally fine. Make the music you want, put it out the way you want, but as long as your expectations are correct, like as long as your expectations are, probably no one is ever going to hear this other than like a few people. And if you're okay with that and you don't want anything more than that, that's fine. But if you do, like you're just like in denial that people are just going to somehow find out who you are and like, oh, I need to sign you, or I want to book a tour for you. It's very, very, very unlikely that will happen.
Yes, and it's a slow process too, by the way. It's not something that, I mean, like some people have gone viral and they've had some success off of that, but most of the time,
extremely rare. But yes,
it's a slow building behemoth that you are,
even the people who like even the people who like explode, like if you actually look at it, they've been working towards
doing it for a
years.
long time. Yeah. I mean, like, man, when I started marketing, it was probably actually around when you were starting Spectre Media, so around 2016. I was like, oh yeah, I just got through college. I'm just like ready to take the world. I'm just like, oh, I don't really know anything. So I had to really go out, and it really becomes to the person themselves, right? They have to pursue on their own agenda, on their own time. They have to make the time to do these things. It's never something that's just going to fall in your lap. You have to go and make the conscious effort to learn and to put into place these actionable, techniques, because if you don't, you'll always be wishing, and we don't want to wish, that's for dreamers, right?
It's one of those things that made me, being in bands and trying to get other band members to, take action on the stuff that I tell them to take action. Like, it makes me understand now why with bands there tends to be just one person that kind of does everything and leads everything. It's because realistically the rest of the band members say they want to do something, but in reality, in terms of action, very little happens. Like I do a lot of things in my day-to-day life, and so I try to delegate as much of my band stuff as possible to other band members, where I feel like they have their strengths, right? But at the end of the day, it's almost no one does anything, and I have to end up picking up the slack, and I, every time I hit them up with like, oh, sorry, I'm busy. I was like, yeah, but I work 10 hours a day, and I still was able to make a social media post. It doesn't take that long. It takes like 30 seconds, a minute, maybe, and and then, when you dig down deeper, they're like, I didn't know what exactly it's supposed to. It's like, okay, it's like, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to hold your hand a couple times so you know exactly how to do it and what to do. And then from there, you'll have the knowledge, right? And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. It works for a little bit, and then it just kind of drops off. So it's like, and this is where it gets hard, because some people will get discouraged and like, well, I mean, nobody else is doing it, so I'm not going to do anything. But unfortunately, you don't have that luxury if you actually want your band to be successful and succeed. Like, you actually have to, unfortunately, pick up the slack. But that also means that later on, when there is success with the band, you better be keeping tabs on who did what, because like, it's like, hey, I asked you to do all this stuff. I ended up doing it all. I did I put in the effort, and it's and that's where a lot of bands start having problems because they feel like, you know, maybe that it was an unfair, like, you know, it's like, well, I didn't have time, you had time. It's like, no, I didn't have time, I made time.
Right.
Everybody has to make time, you know, like how
It's a
serious are you
tale as
about
old
this?
as time.
Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like, how serious are you about this? Like really, you know?
Yeah.
Like I reinvest all my money as like I don't really spend money on like things that much. Like everything I spend my money on is essentially to reinvest into like my music career. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, most members in bands don't really do that. In my experience, at least, you know.
Yeah, it's such wise words, man,
Yeah.
because you're really touching on some real topics there. I mean, personally, I went through that myself, and
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why, you know, my project Homeric was, you know, it took the path that it took. I lived
Yeah.
with my bandmates, and I had the exact same thing, which is one of it. You know, what's that other proverb? It's like you can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped, kind of thing. You know, if they don't want it that
Right.
bad,
You
then
can lead a horse to
you
water.
can't make them want it, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
if it's going to if it's going to be something like that, I remember going to I confided in someone I was working for. I was on tour with a band called The Cringe, and shout out to John Cusimano, who was the leader of the band, because he offered these words for me. He was just like, you know, at the time I wasn't really thinking of it like as members of a company or anything, but he's like, if something's not working, you got to fire people. I was like, oh yeah, oh wow, you know, it was hard to think of it that way because I was like, these are my boys, or you know, these are people that I spent relational time with.
It's really hard. Yeah.
And you know, to make that decision and move forward, it was one of the most like painful moments of my life, because you know, you really are cutting people off that weren't serving you in that case. So that in some ways is probably one of the hardest lessons any band member could learn, because from that point on, for someone like me, it became, this is now the path that I walk, and I've committed to that. I knew that at that moment there was a fork in the road, and I was either going to go one way or I was going to go the other way. And you know, it's important to recognize those milestone moments in your life to be able to then, you know, propel you to move forward. And that decision making and being, you know, you don't have to like it, but you have to do it with confidence and knowing that that was the right decision.
Yes, exactly.
And that's all part of, you know, I guess you could say that's good character building, but it also does, it makes you more tenacious to be able to handle an industry like this, because that will happen, and you have to be able to look out for yourself while trying to still do the right thing.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's why, you know, you hear stories about like Dave Mustaine being difficult to work with as a band member or whatever, and I have more sympathy for Dave Mustaine, you know, than I used to, because you know, like the people that are still in the band, like you know, that haven't been let go, are people that are all understand what we're talking about. They've all walked that path in their own bands. So as long as you know, with a band as big as Megadeth and has been around as long as Megadeth, you know, having people with that kind of experience could potentially be a problem, because they all feel like, you know, they have real experience that they can contribute to. But this is Dave Mustaine and Megadeth. It's his band, so they all also have to understand, oh, hey, this is his band. He's built it. It's one of the biggest metal bands on the planet. I can just chill until Dave needs me for something. If Dave asks me for something, then I can do my thing, you know? Right. It's tough, man. I mean, I unfortunately, it's the thing I hate to do the most is fire people. Like there's nothing I hate more than that. But unfortunately, I've had to do it more times than I can even remember. In my own bands, in the bands I manage, you know, and and I try to make it as easy as possible. I give people multiple chances. Like, hey, this is the problem. We don't want to get rid of you, and we're not only we're going to tell you what the problem is, we're going to try and help you solve the problem, right? So it was that scene from Jerry Maguire, "Help me help you," right? So, and at that point, if they still don't come through, like it's hard for them to even like be mad about getting fired. They're, if anything, they're kind of like upset at themselves. So a lot of communicate, like that's how I've come to now be able to, like, hey, like, dude, like, what would you do in my place? Like, we told you what the problems were. We gave you more time than reasonable to do it, and we even held your hand on how to solve it, and you still didn't do any of it. Like, I mean, you just like, the priorities for you is just not this band, and that's okay. There's no hard feelings.
Sure.
But like that's not what the band needs, unfortunately.
Right.
And sometimes it's like, sometimes it's they're really good friends. And you got to do what you got to do if you actually care about the band and you're trying to grow the band as a business.
Yeah.